That's where like going to attend these conferences is just so valuable because it just gets rid of the noise.
Hmm.
Like there's
Yeah.
so much noise on X, and it's hard to tell these days what is real and what's not real. And I've been running a little bit of an experiment of the posts that I've made in the last couple of days. I've been only making it so verified people can respond,
Mm.
and my comments have gone from about 20 or 30 to like 3.
Wow.
And so um it's tough to say like exactly what the true sentiment is, and like there are certainly bots out there. Just in the last couple of weeks, I mean, we've gotten like death threats bots.
Wow.
And it's like we've reported this to authorities, like that's been escalated. It's like real gnarly stuff out there. Like I can't believe this is
Wild.
even happening. But that's something like we got to deal with and think about. So you think about the incentives of people, like financial markets are really powerful, and you're spinning up 1,000 bots in different,
Hmm.
jurisdictions in the Philippines and India and all over these other places. Like the only cost is the energy and like the cell phone to run the bot,
Hmm.
and you can run up thousands of them. And whereas like if you have to pay $80 a year, like the cost of being a bot just is it like doesn't make sense. So just something I'm like keeping an eye on. And I mean, to your point, like the fundamentals haven't been haven't been stronger. Like you look
Yeah.
at a company like Strategy, which I focus on a lot. The company is in a better financial position than they literally have ever been, like like ever. And yet
Oh.
people think the sky is falling, and it's like, oh my god, I just the dissonance is just mind
Mm.
numbing because they are so financially strong with so little leverage. Like the world is a completely different place than like November of 22 when the sky was actually falling. I'd say the noise was about the same, and Strategy, like they had more debt than they had assets on their balance sheet. Now it's like the story is completely flipped. They've got, 15% leverage. Of that 15% leverage, like 7 or 8% of it never comes due. There's not even a maturity.
Mm.
They could
Yeah.
they could pay out their dividend payments for 100 years. Like it's just totally mind numbing witnessing some of the just the really negative sentiment, thinking that the world's over. And to your point, the like having a long term perspective, like the old OG Bitcoiners have this like hodl mentality, and it feels like almost all of them have left X. And maybe they have because they're like, oh, price at 100K, like I'm out of here. I don't need to be
Hmm.
here anymore. Um, but like that's still the message. But like if you're remotely close to this stuff, like if you look at every single 4-year compound annual growth rate period in Bitcoin's history is positive. And if like you only have one company that has lived through the Bitcoin standard era
Mm.
for more than 4 years, and it's Strategy. If you look at the absolute worst 4-year period for Strategy since inception, you would have had a 31% compound annual growth rate over those 4 years.
Jeez.
Like the worst, if you would have been the worst at picking like the start date and the end date 4 years later, it would be a 31% compound annual growth rate. Like that's a good trade. So
Yeah.
like that context,
I'll take that.
people thinking the sky is falling on these Bitcoin treasury companies and they're never going to like exist. Like they're still sitting on Bitcoin. Like you can operate with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is capital, and I just encourage anybody to take a long horizon on any of these things because like just taking the same mentality with holding Bitcoin. Like, granted, it's a different product. I encourage everybody to have Bitcoin in cold storage. It's a great
Mm.
exercise to do, but the context of taking a long term mentality, like you can't understate that because right, Bitcoin moves. When Bitcoin moves, it moves in like 10 days, and if you're not holding for those 10 days, you miss out on like 80 or 90% of the return. So you're just better off holding than trying to time the market or guess the market. And it's even like amplified to another magnitude for the Bitcoin treasury companies. So there's just a lot of risk associated with that. So yeah, that's my view there, but agree with
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Yeah. What is your thought on, because again, there's obviously so much made about the treasury companies. Obviously, strategy is the one that for years has just been in the spotlight of, oh, well, wait until there's, the a downturn, or wait until there's this and that happens. And,
Yeah.
it's like, how do you, you can only lead a horse to water. You can't make him drink. So it's like, it's hard to cut through the noise at times. But what is your prognostication, I guess, on just the overall treasury market in general going forward? I guess, whenever we do have a downturn in Bitcoin price, like, how do you see that community of Bitcoin treasury companies, maybe we'll call it, just how do you see them faring over the next few
Yeah.
years?
Yeah, I think some will be clear winners for sure. The ones that have like really either like a stellar operating business with great cash flow, which there's very few of those, and most of them have been zombie companies historically,
Right.
or you have a stellar like treasury team that's out in the markets leveraging the collateral in unique ways and providing securities to the market that are unique, like perpetual preferred equity, or identifying collateralized opportunities or ways to generate yield on the Bitcoin that are novel and unique. Worst case scenario is like these companies can just sit on their Bitcoin though. Like even if you're an operating company at break even and you break even and you got a paycheck, you live your life, you keep doing whatever, you're not going to sell to another company that doesn't have Bitcoin. Like you're as a takeover target, if any fiat company were to come try to like take over your business, you're going to say, well, at least I have Bitcoin. Like I'm valued at my
Yeah.
Bitcoin plus something, like whatever the operating business is worth. And um, so to that extent, I think that fundamentally all of these Bitcoin treasury companies should trade at a multiple greater than zero. It should be one plus something. That could be one plus one. Like it could be much greater than one. And one of the reasons I have that perspective is because what's the, you look at a company like Strategy, what's the cost today to go buy 638,000 Bitcoin on the open market? Right? Like what that's
Insane.
70,
Yeah.
it's like 70 billion dollars of Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
How much would that cost? Probably, I don't know, maybe like 125 billion, something like that. And then you think about that on the entire market. And let's just fast forward. Let's think 5-10 years from now. Um, let's say a company, and I brought this up on another podcast earlier. Let's say a company like Costco wants to acquire Bitcoin, and they want to acquire like 10,000. But they look on the exchanges and they're like, well, I can't buy 10,000. Like it would just take too long. I don't want to take the price volatility between, what's 400,000 and 750,000 or whatever it's trading at that point. And at that point, acquiring a company that's got all this Bitcoin in its balance sheet looks like a more efficient solution. So, and in order to do that, you're gonna have to pay a premium, recognizing like your opportunity cost. So like I could go buy this in the open market, or I can acquire this company. So like, what's the cost benefit between the two? And I think that's kind of where this marketplace goes over the future. But in the short term, I think all these companies are going to be okay. And there's MNAV, a lot of people talk about it as a sentiment indicator. The way I see it is kind of this like price elasticity of demand for the entire marketplace. And that when there's fewer shares of these Bitcoin treasury companies available, the multiples go higher. When there's more shares available, like the multiples drop relative to everything else in the industry. So one thing that nobody's really done yet that I think would be interesting to see is like, what is the multiple on the industry? Like the entire industry, like all Bitcoin treasury companies. And how has that changed over time relative to like PE multiples in AI and all of these other industries? Because I think that's what we really should be comparing, not necessarily any one individual one of these like $500 million market cap companies. Like that's tiny fish in the sea. Like any one of these companies can trade at a 0.8 premium to a 2.5 to 5 to 10 premium very quickly, with a short amount of trading volume. So that's kind of how I view the landscape. There's a lot of opportunity in this space, and a lot of people say like, well, the only strategy is going to win. My combat to that is there are 4,800 banks, there are 4,200 credit unions, there are 5,800 insurance companies, and they all offer the same products. So there is significant room for multiple companies to offer very similar securities with a different flavor to different investor pools.
If you like that clip, then you definitely got to check out this next spicy clip. I think you're really going to like it. Come on, check it out. But if you want the full version, the full interview, then check that out over here. Come on, do it. I'll see you in there.